We both found out yesterday we're old.
Oh, don't even get me started on that. I want to talk about that. This fuck you, Steve, and asking how old I am. I've been trying to forget that for 10 years.
Yeah.
This is the AT Banter Podcast, a balanced and entertaining look at assistive technology, accessibility, and its importance in people's lives. Join Rob Minot, Ryan Fleury, and Steve Barclay as they banter with people around the world about anything and everything regarding assistive technology and the disability community. Now, on with the show.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of AT Banter. My name is Rob Minot.
Not Rob Inno.
Well,
Robin O.
Listen, I'll explain after I introduce you, so just shut up over there. I am joined, as you can hear, by Mr. Ryan Fleury.
Good morning.
No Steve Barclay today. He's out, so it's just us. And yeah, you know, it's funny. I say my name like that because we're looking into some transcription solutions for ourselves.
It's not going very well.
Because we really want it. We understand that we need the show transcribed, and we have no budget on the show, so we can't really pay somebody to transcribe us, so we don't have the time to do it ourselves. So we're trying to find some software or something that could maybe
help us along. And I was reading the transcript of the show that we plugged into this software, and it was terrible. And I'm just like, and one of the things that it never got my name right, ever. Like every time it was just like, I'm Robin. Oh.
And I was just like, is it that bad? Do I say it?
No.
Am I that much of a mushmouth that it can't even transcribe my name properly? So from going here on,
he's Jack.
I'm gonna articulate my name much better. So
what's your name?
Rob Minot.
All right. Catch the M on Minot.
That's
transcription
right.
software.
It's like the fish. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah. Did you have a good vacation last week?
Vacation was nice. We were out in the Kootenays camping with my family and just had some R&R time. The only downside to being out camping is, for some unknown reason, when you get back, you need a couple days to recover, and I'm not sure why that is, but we had a good time.
Excellent. I am glad to hear that. That's why we didn't have a show last week, if anybody was wondering. But speaking of which, what are we up to this week, sir?
Well, this week, before we even introduce our guest, we have a podcast treat again. Bum, ba, da, bum.
Oh, really?
This week's podcast treat is, hang on a second here.
Oh, yeah, I forgot we were doing this. Whoa.
Oops, did I miss you?
Oh, look at that.
Today's podcast treat is the O. Henry Chocolate Bar.
Maybe we should be reaching out to these places
for sponsorship.
I don't know. Like, yeah, it's this week's podcast brought to you by O. Henry. And now we will spend 5 minutes listening to Rob eat it. I don't know. How did this become a bit?
I don't know.
Okay, but I'm not complaining. Listen, thank you for the O. Henry. This is lovely.
Well, it's just one of those things, you know.
For anybody who's wondering, there's crunchy peanuts, there's chewy fudge, there's creamy caramel, and all covered in a delicious chocolate coating.
Now, it's interesting that, well, I guess it's not interesting, but after I got the O. Henrys, I threw up Wikipedia yesterday to look up the history on O. Henry. And in Canada, O. Henry cannot be called a chocolate bar. It's actually considered a candy bar. And it's because of the chocolate standards in Canada are different than the chocolate standards in the U.S. The U.S. O. Henry actually has milk chocolate, whereas in Canada, there is no milk chocolate in the O. Henry chocolate bar.
Really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah. So go to Wikipedia. It's been around since, I think, 1920, the O. Henry chocolate bar. And it was just quite interesting. So we might actually do a history segment on each of our new podcast treats, too. We'll see. Yeah.
Would you like me to read the nutritional information?
It's making up for the soup you're going to eat for lunch. You need your calories.
Wow, there's zero cholesterol. That's surprising.
Excellent. Oh, it's healthy.
Yeah. but it does contain 25% of your daily fat intake. So,
you're still safe.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure I go over my recommended daily fat intake every day, anyways. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay. Well, what else are we doing today?
Today we are talking with Jesse Jur, who is an associate professor of textile engineering, chemistry, and science at the North Carolina State University College of Textiles.
This is exciting. Smart clothing is something that I had not been on my radar.
Nope.
But when you suggested him for the show, my mind started just spinning in thinking about all the different AT applications that smart clothing could have. So, and I didn't even really think, I didn't know people were working on this, but apparently they are. So I'm excited to talk to Jess and see what the deal with Smart Textiles is.
Yeah, and this is just, one university. If we dig a little bit deeper into this whole textile engineering topic, I'm sure we would uncover a whole lot of gems. So, we may have other guests on later on talking more in depth about this.
Hey, but before we do that, let's talk a few news items, shall we?
Let's do it.
It's an article from CBS News. Bad braille plagues buildings across U.S. CBS News Radio investigation finds. This is crazy to me.
Well, it is if you're new to this kind of story, but if you're a follower of our podcast, you've heard us talk in the past about the ADA, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act in the United States, and how it seems to have fallen down in a lot of areas. And this should come as no surprise, this story.
CBS News has uncovered complaints to the Justice Department's Disability Rights section about missing or incorrect braille at a number of public facilities, including Albuquerque's bus system, restaurants in Kansas and Pennsylvania, and hospital and medical buildings in Chicago, among other locations. The records, spanning 2 years, were obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request. The article goes on to say they found incorrect and missing braille at a branch of the D.C. Public Library, which had a notable lack of braille signage and no labeling of audiobooks, which are a common way of reading for the blind. At the Franklin Delano Roosevelt Memorial, the braille was too oversized to read for the blind. When asked about this, the National Park Service told CBS News that the braille on the memorial was, quote, part of the artist's design of the memorial and was not necessarily intended as an accessibility element for the blind.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. Just wow. City Hall at the Wilson Building in the District of Columbia featured labels that were overly generic. For instance, labeling a set of stairs as stairs rather than identifying the location of the building, like Northwest Stairs or Stairwell 1. A bathroom sign for the men's restroom was also just labeled bathroom.
Yeah, crazy.
But this is in a country where it's been 30 years since the Americans with Disabilities Act has been in place. 30 years, and they still aren't taking braille seriously. And the reason why I really locked onto this story is because I really feel like both in the U.S. and Canada, braille signage is not taken seriously.
No, and I'd be willing to bet
just not.
If there was a study done here in Canada of our, federal, provincial buildings and so on, our braille signage is definitely lacking, and it's probably not being maintained either.
It's lacking where it's even there.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't feel like it is taken as seriously as something like, say, wheelchair ramps.
Yeah.
Wheelchair ramps got to the point, handicap parking, wheelchair ramps. There's all these, curb cuts. These are things that got implemented much better than something like braille signage. And, now we have no excuse. We are now a Canada that has a National Accessibility Act. And still, I go to new spaces that have just been built. There's a mall down the street from me that was just completely gutted and completely renovated. Everything's new. And you walk into their bathrooms, there's no braille signage anywhere. There's nothing.
No consultation on accessibility design at all.
Nothing.
Yeah. And that's why I think unless it becomes part of the building code, any accessibility becomes part of the building code, it's not going to happen. It's going to be an afterthought, a bolt-on thought. And that has to change. That has to change for everybody. Libraries, federal buildings, provincial buildings, schools. Because there's no incentive to do it, And maybe the act will change that, but I doubt it.
I think it's something that people need to take seriously. Even the placement of braille signage needs to be a standard. It needs to be in the same place all the time, and it needs to reflect the right information. There's a lot to be considered when it comes to things like braille signage, and it should be everywhere, especially in things like federal buildings, schools, libraries,
hospitals.
Yeah, and I'm sure that some are better than others in terms of different facilities, but there needs to be standards. And stuff like this drives me crazy because this obviously shows that it's just not something that's taken seriously. All right, well, let's end the news segment on a positive note.
All right.
Let's talk about Comcast.
Comcast, what are they up to?
Well, Comcast's latest accessibility feature lets customers change TV channels with their eyes. Comcast is introducing Eye Control to its X1 cable platform, which is a new effort from the company that will improve the experience of watching TV for millions of people with physical disabilities. Eye Control lets customers change channels, pull up the X1 programming guide, set DVR recordings, and navigate through other menus of the cable box using only their eyes.
That's amazing.
Well, it's basically supporting all the popular eye gaze hardware and software that's on the market, but it even supports puff switches.
Yeah, cool.
So great. Building accessibility into mainstream software and hardware. Always love to hear that.
Well, allowing people to regain some independence is always beneficial.
Sure. Now they just need to make these cable boxes that are accessible for the visually impaired. So they need to be all the menus. Everything should talk.
Well, supposedly Shaw's Blue Sky box does 85% of that. I don't have Blue Sky here, but one of our friends I don't know if he's a friend of the show, but one of our old-time past company clients actually did a review of the Shaw Blue Sky TV, and I can send you the recording. It's pretty well done for somebody who's blind or visually impaired.
Yeah.
But alas, I don't have it. The reason why is because Shaw, with their current gateway systems, will not allow you to back up your recordings from your PVR. So my wife, who likes her reality TV, cannot get her programs off there, and she doesn't want to lose her programs because she's got some movies on there that she doesn't want to lose. So until they come up with a way to back those up and put them on the new box, we are stuck with the gateway. That or I just got to put my foot down and say, I'm man, you woman, you listen. I'm sure that'll go over real well.
See how that. Let me know how that works out for you, buddy. Yeah, but no, this is great news. Kudos to Comcast. Of course, we don't have Comcast up here in Canada, but I'm sure that Canadian versions of Comcast will take note and hopefully bring something like that to Canada. But the more and more that when assistive technology is recognized as a need and is pushed out to a customer base, it's good news for AT all across the board. So
I think the attitude is changing in the public. People are starting to see people with disabilities are consumers as well, have money to spend, and these companies have been missing the boat for so many years. So they're taking notice, and good on them.
And listen, this is mainstream applications too. Look,
Yep.
If I can change the channel by just moving my eyes, and I don't have to bend over and grab the remote and do it, well, hell.
Yeah.
Sign me up. I can just keep stuffing my face with my O. Henry and never actually even move off the couch, like literally not move.
My remote's dead and I don't have batteries. I can use my eyes. Never mind the remote.
There's just going to be a society of like 400-pound people on these couches that are just like, ah.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. Hey, Steve, why don't you tell the fine folks about Canadian Assistive Technology?
Well, Canadian Assistive Technology is a Canadian-based distributor of, guess what? Assistive Technology.
I would not have guessed that.
Really? Oh, I got to work something better into the name then. And we do all kinds of low vision and blindness aids, as well as all kinds of physical access aids and accessible furniture. You name it. Visit our website at www.canastech.com.
Rick, let me ask you about this. Chaos Technical Services.
Chaos Technical Services.
Don't sound so excited about it. Woo! Speaking of repairs.
We are the sister company to Canas Tech. We do the repairs on low vision devices, reading machines, for libraries, braille printers, and pretty well anything in between. We can be found at www.chaostechnicalservices.com.
Joining us now is Jesse Jur, Associate Professor of Textile Engineering at the North Carolina State University College of Textiles. Good morning, sir.
Hi, this is Jess.
Well, thank you, sir, for joining us. This is going to be an interesting conversation because we know nothing about
Smart Textiles.
All right. Well, pleasure to be joining you all today.
Okay, well, perfect. You know what? Well, let's start out and just give us a brief overview, if you could, of just what is meant by Smart Textiles and what's going on with them these days.
Yeah, so Smart Textiles, as you can imagine, are something that is, well, there's no such thing as a dumb textile, I'll have to say that. So there's all just textiles. But Smart Textiles in general are something that are kind of considered to be responsive to an environment. So this could be coatings that you can put onto a textile that provide thermal management or maybe moisture control that is beyond just the typical actions of like a fabric that you would wear on as a regular shirt. But even within that, there's how sophisticated do you get actually to be this response? And sometimes these responses can be actuated by electronics or can leverage electronics to sense something that's in an environment or that's happening with you, and then respond and give feedback to that. And so that's how it would be smart. A lot of the research that I do is within the latter part of that, where we integrate electronics into textiles to sense things about a person's body, again, provide feedback to them directly or through like a cell phone or like an app that you have on your cell phone. And then we actually try to understand what kind of outcomes that might, or what kind of influences that might have on a user.
So now, in terms of the actual electronics that are current level of technology that we're sort of able to incorporate into clothing, I'm assuming that, there's a few things that have to be taken into consideration. I mean, there's flexibility. Whenever you're dealing with clothing, it has to be comfortable. It has to be, be able to obviously be washed and dried. So does that limit the type of electronics that you're able to sort of incorporate into clothing? Where are we at with that?
Yeah, so man, that is always the $1 million question, and that's actually probably where the major advancements are coming in. So yeah, is the expectation that you're going to put your cell phone, like your iPhone or your Samsung S9 or S10 or whatever you have, on a piece of clothing? That would be completely unrealistic, and I would hate to wear that.
Right.
Whereas if you have like some components that communicate with that device, then you can still leverage that what we refer to as that data aggregator. That's where we collect all of our data. So then how do you actually get some of those electronics features onto a garment so that you can actually communicate then with the cell phone.
Right.
And so there's a couple different like categories of things that you probably want to put on. So for example, you can put on like flexible sensors you can print on conductive materials or materials that will interact with the body and read like biopotential signals coming from the body. This is things like an electrocardiogram signal or electromyograph, which is basically measuring muscle activity. So you have your heart rate with the electrocardiogram, and then you have muscle activity through EMG. And then you can, so those are like flexible sensors that you can actually integrate through like printing technologies, or you can actually put like these really fine conductive yarns that people make, and you can embed those actually into the textile itself during the manufacturing. And then you have to link all of those, and then there's sensors that are really so good that it's probably going to be a long time before they can be replicated on using those printing technologies or conductive fabric technologies into like a really good device. So something that is like a motor or something that measures body activity, something like an accelerometer. Right. Those are all common devices that are made really inexpensively right now. So, but they are all in hard component form, or they're stiff and rigid, but they're really small.
Right.
And so the key is to how do you actually integrate those little tiny rigid devices in a textile and protect them enough so that you can, number one, don't feel them, but then protect them to the point where you can actually toss them into the washing machine and whatnot. And then, of course, there's things like batteries that have to support all this, and then you have to route all of those electronics to some sort of something that controls the logic and where it's measuring, how it's measuring, how often it's measuring. And that's called a microcontroller unit. And so the microcontroller unit with the battery is typically put into what we refer to as a puck. And a puck is this detachable component that you can take off of your garment, and then you can go and wash your garment as many times as you want, hopefully. And then you can put your puck back on after the wash, and then you can still. And that's what that puck is actually that's the thing that's communicating with your cell phone,
right? Or
with some other platform that you're collecting data from or collecting data to.
On your TED Talk where you showed that shirt with LEDs that was monitoring heartbeat, I guess there was a microcontroller unit on that shirt as well?
Yeah, so with that, there's like a little detachable unit that in that case we had that has a Bluetooth connection that connects up to a cell phone or a tablet. It's got a little microcontroller unit and a battery that we can just take off, and then we can go and kind of do whatever dry cleaning or wash cycles that we want to do onto the shirt. But all of the LEDs would be integrated into the garment in that case, as well as the sensors that are measuring your heartbeat. And all that is actually washable. So there's a couple of like key like logistical things or reasons why you want some sort of detachable component onto garments. So, for example, in a lot of sports science or sports applications where e-textiles is seeing a lot of traction, or the smart textiles are seeing a lot of traction, you don't want to use the same workout shirt every single day. So, what you want to be able to take off an expensive component, which is all the electronics, and move that to another garment while you're washing the other garment. So typically you have like 2 or 3 garments, but from an electronic standpoint, you just have like one.
Now, is this a fairly new field?
Actually, it isn't. You'd be surprised. So people have been adding electronic components onto textiles since late 70s, early 80s, and a lot of that was for putting into workman's gear or when they do microelectronics processing or microelectronics manufacturing. You want to be able to dissipate static because your static could actually kind of destroy the thing that you're making. the electronic piece that you're making. So you actually want to be able to dissipate that. So people have been adding in conductive materials to do that for quite a while. Okay. It's not until, I would say, probably maybe about 15 years ago where people really started putting electronics into garments to actually really effectively measure something. Right. However, it's been really slow to kind of develop because the materials really haven't existed. And that's been for a whole host of reasons. But and there also really kind of generally hasn't been a user need. I mean, we didn't even know really what the power of wearable electronics was 15 years ago. Right. It really wasn't until probably 2010, 2009 before we started realizing what like Bluetooth could actually do. Right. Especially Bluetooth Low Energy, which allows for smaller batteries and whatnot, so that you can actually create really small form factors. Otherwise, you'd be carrying around like a car battery on your shirt, and I don't know anybody who wants to carry around a car battery.
That's right. We, deal with assistive technology. So I think both Ryan and I thought, well, this has some pretty big assistive technology implications if we can get the technology to the point where something like haptics could be built into, say, a piece of clothing.
Yeah, absolutely. In general, the wearables, I think, kind of fall into this little subcategory of, or can be maybe if you look at like a Venn diagram, there's this whole space of IoT or Internet of Things, and wearables are maybe kind of like have a slight overlap with that. And the spirit between IoT and the spirit behind wearables is really how can technology improve lifestyle or ease of life. Right. And when you don't have necessarily a normal life, you want to be able to apply technologies in which you can try to make your life as normal as possible, or as easy, or provide as much ease as possible. You don't want to be unencumbered by some of the challenges that you have. I mean, if you look at the healthcare, or if you look at the applications of wearables in health monitoring, that's exactly the spirit of what we're trying to do. Right. Is how do you let somebody live like outside of a hospital or get out of a hospital quicker, and so that you can live your normal life. And so there's but a lot of the technologies still are not necessarily, I would say, completely inclusive towards, or are trying to be as inclusive as you'd want them to be towards all broad source populations. Yeah. And so but there are a lot of advancements towards going that direction. I think if you look at some of the wrist-worn wearables like the iWatch or the Samsung Gear, you can start to see a lot of the haptic feedback that's put into there that is really allowing for new interfaces for assistive technologies, like you said.
Yeah, and I was mentioning to Rob earlier, I think, 5-6 years ago, maybe longer, there was a company who developed a pair of haptic shoes for people with vision impairments and haptic insoles as well. So being paired to your Android or iOS device, your left shoe would vibrate to, tell you to go to the left. Your right shoe would vibrate to tell you to go to the right. We have wearables that emit ultrasonic frequencies that you wear on your wrist to help detect obstacles. There's a wide range of applications, I guess, that the smart technology in wearables could really have an effect. Yeah,
100%. So I think haptics is kind of is one of the easy ones to think about. I'm actually working with a company that is putting I'd say microphones or these microphone antennas inside of a garment that allows for improved hearing. There are colleagues that I work with here that are using these elastomeric polymers to integrate that when you apply a voltage to it, they actually move up and down so that you can create sort of like a dynamic braille platform So there's a lot of things even outside of the haptics that you can think about towards integrating in for a lot of these wearables. But it does kind of get down to, what's the economics of the whole situation, right? And that's the economics in a lot of in reality decides a lot of the decisions that are being made, or like what kind of product or what kind of how you'd be able to launch a product into a consumer market. Right. And that's actually a lot of the research that we do within my research group is we look at these different technology spaces and look at the possible commercialization plans for companies that would be able to that want to go into these spaces. And we think about the parallel technologies that they could make in order to improve the economics to make a profitable product, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
One of the first things people usually ask me is like, well, why do I want my electronics to be in a textile? Like, why do I want all these things to be in a shirt? Right. And the simple answer to that is that, number one, the shirt actually offers an incredible amount of real estate. Or any piece of clothing provides an amazing amount of real estate that you can put a number of different sensors onto. And you can also put sensors at the right location in order to get the right data that you want. But then also you can also have a number of different sensors that are communicating to each other within the same platform. Right. So if you have that, then you don't have all of these individual devices that you have to link up through a singular app on a cell phone. Which I don't know about you guys, but when I try to link up some of the wearables that we have, or some of the individual wearables, it's pretty cumbersome, especially the number of steps you have to take in order to actually get a wearable connected onto your cell phone and have it on there consistently. Right. Especially if you're not continuously using that particular wearable. So you have to, for every wearable technology device, you end up having to kind of go in and reactivate that device. Right. And that can actually be one of the reasons why there's a low shelf life associated with a low shelf life associated with wearable technology. So, and what I mean by low shelf life is that the average person only wears their their smart like Fitbit watch or Fitbit platform only for about 3 months, and especially if they're depending on what kind of limits of things that they're trying to track are. So if they're tracking it for steps, then they're only going to wear it for like 3 months before they put it onto a shelf. Right. And never use it again. So you want to be able to reduce that user burden. I think textiles really supports that lower user burden sort of mindset. Sure. It also improves the general economics because then you don't have to have as many components or individual things that you're going out and purchasing. All of those can be on a singular platform.
Sorry, in my head, I'm just thinking like there's a day when you're just like, oh, hold on, my shirt just crashed. I got to restart.
Well, it's definitely the things that we worry about too, and we don't want that to happen, especially when when you're really depending on it. I mean, some of the applications that we have within that we're working on here at the university. So one of the big funding agencies that we have for my research program is a National Science Foundation funded Nanosystems Engineering Research Center called Assist, which basically stands for Advanced Self-Powered Systems of Integrated Sensors and Technologies. Basically, we're making self-powered wearables in this. Right. And our shirt platform is actually one of the key things for this. And we don't want the health outcomes that we're trying to reach, which are recognition of like atrial fibrillation. We don't want to have a shirt that crashes and then sends out a false signal to your doctor that says, "Hey, maybe dying in the Russian ambulance out to you. That's like our worst case scenario.
True, right. I could see that. When it comes to the research, are there kind of a couple different arms of it? Because it seems to me there's the, okay, well, let's push the technology forward so we can do more with smart textiles. But is there also like an arm where you're just kind of going, okay, well, here's the technology we have. What can we actually do with it? Or what kind of real world applications can we apply to this?
Yeah, so there's some of my colleagues may kill me on this for answering the question this way, but the reality is, I mean, there's a lot, there's basic research and there's applied research, and it really takes a lot of these team efforts of both basic researchers and applied researchers in order to really make these true advancements. And I think that's one of the things that like this NSF Engineering Research Center that I'm part of, it brings these large teams together in order to do this. I would have to say that I'm a little bit more on the applied side of research. And so I go and I look at a lot of technologies and materials that are out there that I can buy commercially, or there's a supply chain that exists, or I see the supply chain evolving in such a way that I know that if I go and I make a product out of this in the next year, I know that within 2 or 3 years, that supply chain is going to be mature enough so that I can recreate that product a lot of times.
Right.
And that's where you start getting into mass manufacturing and cost reduction. And so we look at the processes on how to, from an applied standpoint, we look at the processing on how to get those materials onto textiles, how you need to process them so that you can toss these garments into a washing machine, or you can really kind of put them into scenarios that these materials or you can put these materials in, or these garments into use cases that are really important for the consumer. So we go out and we actually investigate what does a garment like this, how would it be applied onto a user, and what kind of beatings would this garment take if it were to put onto someone.
Right.
And that could be not only for Joe Schmo walking down the street, but it can also be for somebody that is coming right out of a hospital or is needing this as an assistive technology. We go in and we understand that person and that persona, and then we design around that, keeping what we refer to as a minimum viable product or minimum viable products, or an MVP, in mind all the time. So we know we're not over engineering things.
Right.
Because as soon as you start over engineering things, that's when you start getting high costs and whatnot in a lot of these technologies.
So in your opinion, where are we at with this? I mean, is it going to be long before we really start to see some traction on this in terms of having some mainstream products?
Yeah, so you can go out and today you can purchase a lot of these some really, really highly advanced technologies of these smart garments with electronics that measure your heartbeat. It's not necessarily FDA approved yet, but for athletics, that's kind of like the big market space. You don't necessarily need FDA approval for that because you're not really making a medical,
right,
or you're not informing a medical decision.
Right.
But so there's garments that measure your heartbeat. There's garments that measure your respiration or your breathing rate. There's garments that are starting to measure how much you're sweating. There's garments that are used for measuring muscle activity. So and all of these you can purchase off of places like Amazon. In fact, I know you all are a Canadian-based show.
Yeah.
One of the major companies within this whole space is this company called Myant, which is in Ontario,
right,
and they're really kind of like they're pretty cutting edge on a lot of the new technologies that are being developed in this, or the new products. But at the end of the day, again, it comes down to the economics. And so a lot of these garments cost at a minimum $150 to $200 or US dollars. And some of them, like this garment that measures muscle activity, is I think it's like $350, $375.
Right.
And I don't own a $375 anything.
That's true.
So I'm not going to buy a shirt that costs that much. It's kind of like really the thing that has to happen is that cost
right.
and the manufacturing methods really have to go down. And a lot of people are thinking that that's going to happen through a lot of these new startup companies that are coming out and developing these technologies, and then they'll be merged or bought or acquired by larger textile companies, or maybe even some of the higher or more advanced electronics companies. And with that sort of partnerships between the textile space and this electronic space, you'll start to see a lot of cost reductions and applicability to a broader user base.
Yeah, well, it sounds like, I mean, that makes total sense. I can see why, sort of professional athletics or athletics in general seems to be the sort of the main space where this is existing right now, because, again, those are the people that would spend $350 on a shirt that's going to, measure something like muscle activity. So I guess from what I understand is that it's just a matter of this technology's out there. It's going to require companies to sort of take that technology base and develop something that's going to work for whatever they happen to be, whatever their demographic happens to be, and whatever the
largest consumer base in any population is between the ages of 35 and 50, I think. At least I'm pretty sure that hasn't changed within the past couple of years, although I think that kind of dynamic is sort of evolving pretty rapidly right now about who spends money. So yeah, I mean, but again, you have to think about the need. And I think if you look at everybody has different needs. It's like, what's the highest volume needs in a lot of cases. But then, the thing that people have to think about when they go through the design of these garments is really that how can you design them to be as inclusive as possible so that you can reach out populations that are, I would say, underrepresented in a lot of instances. And it's those types of companies, I think, that are going to be really successful just because of the fact that they're thoughtful about and the ways in which they do design.
Right.
So I'll give you a great example. There's a company, Cute Circuit, that I think is probably creating some of the most innovative assistive technology wearable devices that's out there. They have a particular product called a sound shirt that has haptic feedback and lighting in it, so that responds to sound. So you could be listening to music, and the different motors will actually provide different feedback based on what you're listening to. So you can actually kind of have that enjoyment of the music even without hearing it. I think they've got an amazing YouTube video. I really recommend checking it out. It's super inspiring. Every time I show that in my classes that I teach on electronic textiles, everybody's blown away and they want to create the next sound shirt.
Wow.
So it's like a wearable D-Box or rumble seat for your movie watching or your audio listening. Nice.
Yeah, it's really cool. And then if you start thinking about like where we're going right now, and especially within all of the AR and VR types of human interfaces. There's a lot of space for how to change that dynamic based on things that you're wearing. And I think that's going to be, I think that's going to be a pretty interesting space here in the next couple of years. And I think Cute Circuits is kind of like well on their way to figuring that out.
In one of your videos, Jess, you had mentioned how, some of these threads or materials, the electronics can be sewn right into like logos on your shirt and, different types of the manufacturing or fabricating. And it's just so mind-blowing to try to imagine where this is at now without really knowing the industry and where it could actually go in, as little as 3 to 5 years. Everything getting smaller and smaller and, smarter and smarter.
Yeah, it's I would agree 100%. I mean, it's why I enjoy coming to work every day. It's mind-boggling to me too. And it really kind of, I mentioned this earlier, it really kind of takes these multidisciplinary mindsets from both the basic research and applied research, but then also within that, on my team, I'm really fortunate to be able to have, people that focus in on textiles and textile engineering. So that's how you construct textiles, and then textile technologists, and that's how you apply them into different products, whether it be garments or whether it be other types of textiles. And then we have fashion designers that make these things stylable or stylish for us.
Right.
But then we have mechanical engineers that understand, things like, a lot of times we don't want our sensors to move on the body when we're moving around on textiles. So we use our mechanical engineers to help us with that. We have industrial designers to understand the use case so that we can do human-centric design. We have biomedical engineers that understand how the human body moves, how the human body is sending out data for us to go and capture, and how to use that. We have computer scientists within our team that can go and analyze all this data, and then provide that visualization back to the users so that it can, and visualization can happen in a lot of different ways, obviously, through sight and sound and even feeling, but how to apply that back into somebody so that it can be useful to them. It's really kind of amazing. And it's like I get to work with all these really cool people every single day. And I can tell you that no day goes by where it's like okay, where I'm not seeing something new or having these really interesting conversations about what may happen in the future.
So can you share with us what your current project is?
Yeah, so we have a crazy number of projects that go on in the group. Probably one of the coolest things that we have going on right now is how do we get rid of things like batteries within a garment, or how do we make it so that we don't have to plug in, like we have to plug in our cell phone. I plug mine in every night or maybe a couple times during the day, and if I lose power, then I've got to go plug in it, right? So we're trying to find ways to harvest power from the body in order to support the electronics, because you don't want to necessarily be like burdened by the task of plugging in like your shirt or a glove or like a sleeve every single time that you want this thing to work on. Every time you want to be able to operate this, and so we're trying to think about ways. We have actually platforms that we've created through this Assist Center that harvest body heat from you, and we can put that body heat into energy storage, and we can power up all the electronics, so you never actually have to do anything with it except just put the shirt on, which is pretty cool. And then with those same types of devices, so like how we harvest energy from people, it goes through specific type of device called a thermoelectric. So basically you are harvesting power from a difference in temperature through this one ceramic material that's been around for a long time, but people are really starting to really make them effectively now. But we actually take those same types of devices and we can apply cooling and heating to someone as well.
Wow.
And just by reversing the voltage that we apply onto them. And so we've been investigating how to put those things into garments in a very flexible, very cushiony form factor, which is super exciting. And so you can not only power yourself, but then you can also cool yourself and heat yourself whenever you need to. And so kind of making this sort of like multi-dynamic and multi-customizable platform to support all different kinds of feelings and interactions.
But not only that, there seems to be the potential for you could actually even go farther. And if you could power, say, a shirt just through, your body heat, say, then potentially the shirt could the shirt actually become like a portable battery. So you could actually charge your phone with your shirt. Potentially.
Yeah, there's unfortunately, we're not generating that much power.
Damn
so
it.
Your cell phone takes a good amount of power to be generated. But yeah, we have thought about other things that we could use sort of to make our shirt as a kind of like a portable charging unit for other things.
Right.
Yeah. I think you're on the right track.
Well, I was thinking, more along the lines of, backcountry skier, mountain climbers, in these extreme climates, these shirts could help maybe save their lives.
Yeah, totally.
Gonna hit Amazon and look for
Are you gonna get a smart shirt?
I might get a smart shirt or look up this sound shirt. I'm into sound and audio, so I could sit on my couch and have my shirt bop away with me.
That's true.
Yep. Plug it into my guitar amp and...
Vibrating pants are here.
Happy pants. Sorry, Jess, had to go there.
No worries. We always, you should hear some of the concepts that we come up with.
Yeah, in the lunchroom after hours. Yeah, I'm sure.
Over a beer, it gets pretty funny.
Yeah, I bet.
Well, listen, we want to thank you so much for coming in and chatting with us about it. It's a fascinating field. Anything you want to plug? Anywhere people can go and to find more about smart textiling or the research that you guys are doing?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and mention that we do have we do have an Instagram page that my group runs. If you don't mind, I'll email it to you. And I know that y'all can link it.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. Sure.
Okay. Well, thanks, guys. Really appreciate y'all having me on today, and I'm really happy to have engaged with your community today.
Perfect. All right, Jess. Thanks so much, and good luck with everything.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right. Take care. Wow. Wow. So cool. The mind reels at the potential.
It does. There's people out there thinking of things that we can't even comprehend right now. And in 5 years, we're going to be blown away by the products that are available.
Yeah. I'm kind of shocked at, I feel like price point is the real hurdle that they're coming up against. Mm-hmm. There's not many people that are going to pay $300 for a shirt. Let's be honest. And if that's sort of the going rate for the more complicated pieces of smart clothing, we're a ways away from that really penetrating the mainstream market, I think.
Yeah.
The niche market's fine. Like, for
right.
professional athletes, mountain climbers, like you said, sure, they're going to spend $300 on a shirt that's going to be able to regulate temperature. Mm-hmm. But somebody walking into Old Navy, they're not going to spend $300 on a shirt that maybe might do something cool because it ties into their iPhone. Yeah,
no, it's still, like you said, a niche market. Definitely a health market. Maybe somebody needs to monitor their heart, or their muscle activity. They would probably spend $300, $400, $500 on a shirt like this. syncs up with your phone. Your app tracks it all. Because, how many people out there now are wearing Fitbits and sleep monitors and all this other tech, right? So there is a market for sure.
Yep. Yeah, and not only that, like I feel like AT potential that's there that
we're not even thinking about right now.
Well, it's funny when he mentioned the sound shirt, I thought, oh my God, like that would be a real amazing piece of tech for somebody who's, say, deafblind.
Well, that's what I was just thinking.
To be able to
feel
engage,
the music
to engage with something like music or autistic, the autistic community, something like as sort of a haptic shirt. There are lots there. Even something as simple as, he didn't really mention this, but this is sort of in my head, but say if you were able to label, say, a shirt, to be able to like send an audio signal that says, hey, this is a red shirt. That would be, valuable for, say, the visually impaired community.
Yeah, and there are, there's been ways of tagging articles of clothing for years and years and years. But, the problem is you're always reliant on, a smartphone or a third-party proprietary device built for us in the AT field. So, yeah, if you could just, I don't know, we're all going to have a phone or some sort of device on us most of the time. If you just walk up to your shirt and it, screams out, red shirt with blue pinstripes.
Yeah.
Sure. Then you start matching your clothes in a quick and efficient fashion.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, that it sounds a bit innocuous in terms of AT, but I mean, the more things that all tie together to make, one seamless, accessible experience for somebody who needs that, the better, right? And if you're paying a few dollars more for a shirt that's able to do that, why not? And who knows, this could get to the point where just smart textiling, smart clothes, it's just a thing that's built into most clothing. I feel like we're still a ways away from that, but who knows? The way that the amount of momentum that wearables has right now, this is definitely something that we could start to see in the mainstreams and in the AT field quite soon, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's, it's probably one of those products or fields where nobody has found the magic bullet yet. People with wearables have tried the Fitbit and the Apple Watch and the Samsung Gear and, VR, there's all these different headsets. Nobody's really found that one product yet that kind of lights the population on fire and gets people talking about it. Like I mentioned earlier, there's been the haptic shoes. There's been, these shirts that Jess is talking about. There hasn't been that one product yet that sets people on fire. So once that happens, then it's going to explode.
Sure. I mean, and more, there are things that are sort of entering into the marketplace that are cooler. I think integration is a really big component of wearables. Like the one example that I'm thinking of is the sunglasses or the glasses now, where I don't think it's bone conduction, but it's actually the arms of the frame that sit above your ears act as your headphones.
Yeah, the Bose AR frames do that.
Yeah. That's incredible to me. That's a level of integration that I hadn't thought of, and I just thought this is amazing. This is gonna sweep that industry, because there's going to be 10 more of those coming up, because who wouldn't love that, where your headphones and your sunglasses, or your headphones and your glasses are all integrated together. I mean, damn.
And you keep your ears free so you can listen to music or your mobility device or whatever. You could be driving your car and still have your ears free.
Yeah.
So now they just need to come up with a wearable shirt or pants that emits a mosquito detractant field.
Oh, damn,
so when you're out camping, you don't have to worry about mosquito bites.
That would be brilliant. That would be good.
Hit the switch and no more bugs.
See, we should just sit down for the rest of the day and just think of ideas that we can email Jess and be like, hey, listen.
Like an invisible mosquito net around you.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
That would be super cool. I just think it's too bad that the body doesn't create enough whatever bioelectric heat, whatever. Like, could you imagine that if you could actually just plug your phone into your shirt and recharge it? Like, holy crap, that would be amazing. Like, that would be worth a $300 shirt. And if anybody out there has some ideas for some smart clothing ideas, cowbell@atbanter.com. We'd love to hear it. We'll pass it along to Jess and claim the idea as our own.
That's right.
Delete your email. Reap the profits. Mwahaha. Just kidding. Hey, Ryan.
Rob.
Where can people find us?
They can find us online at atbanter.com.
They can also find us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram.
Are you doing anything with Instagram?
No,
Yeah, it's one of those things. I don't know.
It is. It's complicated.
It's
social
complicated.
It is.
We need a millennial.
No, we don't.
We need a millennial to join our team.
All right. Well, then I think that's going to about do it for us this week. Thanks, everybody, for listening in. And we'll see everybody. Oh,
next
you know
week.
what? We're not going to see everybody
right.
next week.
No show next week.
We don't have a show next week because we are on vacation.
Well, Rob's on vacation.
Well, whenever one of us takes vacation, then we just put a pause on the show. So
That's
we
right.
didn't have a show last week. That was because you're on vacation. So,
Yep.
it's the way it works.
Vacations are allowed. It is summertime here.
That's
in the Northern Hemisphere.
right. All right. So we will see everybody in 2 weeks.
This podcast has been brought to you by Canadian Assistive Technology, providing low vision and blindness solutions across Canada. Find us online at www.canasstech.com. That's CANASSTECH.com. Or call us toll free at 1-844-795-8324. For all your assistive technology servicing needs, call Chaos Technical Services at 778-847-6840 or find them online at chaostechnicalservices.com.
Whoa, look at that. Master of the one take.